all of a sudden, I had more energy. I had something coming back to me. And then I had some wisdom come in about certain things that I hadn't thought about. And I was like, what if my brain and nervous system have a lot more to do with this illness than all of these pills and detox and mitochondria and genetics? And it was like in that space of playing in the grass and being tickled by my kids and looking for four leaf clovers, some other wisdom dropped in that seemed like, oh, that's the blind spot here.
I hear this from so many of you. You're doing everything right. You've tried the protocols, the supplements, the brain retraining, but something still isn't shifting. It's like the harder you try, the more stuck you feel. And if that's you, today's conversation might just be your answer. I'm Raelan Agle, and here we focus on meaningful, lasting recovery from ME/CFS and long COVID. We look beyond just symptom management and ask the deeper questions. So, what's truly working for people, and how do we spread the word out to all those people out there who need it the most? I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Cathleen King back to the channel. Dr. Kat is a doctor of physical therapy and founder of Primal Trust, and she's joining us today from over in Utah. In our first conversation 2 years ago, she shared her really powerful recovery journey from ME/CFS, chronic Lyme, and mold illness. Today, we're diving deeper. We're going to be looking at things like what truly shifts the nervous system into a state of healing and how stress can linger beneath the surface, even when we don't even feel stressed. And what's brilliant about Dr. Kat isn't just her depth of experience helping people recover, although that is vast. It's how clearly and simply and passionately she conveys these insights. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by conflicting advice or lost in complicated protocols or feeling pressured to get everything perfectly, this conversation is exactly what you need. So let's dive in. Dr. King, it is incredible to have you back here. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
So you were on the channel a couple years ago and we went into depth with your own personal journey with this leading up to the professional work that you do now, and we'll definitely link that for people. It's a great one to check out to hear your full story. But just for a starting point for this one, with that whole healing journey that you went through with ME/CFS and Lyme and mold, what would you say was your turning point with that, or your aha moment that finally changed the trajectory for you with your recovery?
It's kind of a bitter turning point. And the turning point was when nothing was working. And I remember thinking, like, I have seen the best doctors. I am taking tens of, like all the supplements I can. I've tried all the diets. And it started with this dread of like, how is it that these amazing doctors can't help me? How is it that nothing I am taking seems to move the needle? How is it that I have such a, I had a medical training background and like all the knowledge I had gained and all the things I had tried, and it was just like one step forward, two steps back, one step forward, two steps back for, at that point over a decade. And so it actually started with this feeling of, I guess I just need to give up and surrender into living this way. And sounds dark, but I'll get to why this was actually the turning point. It was the first time that my like driven personality just said, what do my kids want to do today? They just want to like play in the grass. They don't have any energy. So I'm just going to lay down in the grass. And I share this story. I said, well, I'll just lay here and look for four leaf clovers. I've never found one. It's all I can do. I'm not going to think about my protocol. I'm not going to think about this. I'm just going to have to accept that I need to learn to mother with these limitations. And so there was a surrender. And then there was this present moment orientation to doing something that I loved good enough, which was laying in the grass with my kids and looking for four leaf clovers. And I found a four leaf clover that day. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
And so it became this thing. Like my whole life, I'd wanted to find one. So every day I'm like, let's go look for four leaf clovers. And that's all I thought about. And I just looked at the trees and I literally remember like I couldn't do much. So I literally laid in the grass and I let my kids tickle me because so I would laugh and like get over like the god awful pain and discomfort in my body and let them see me laugh. So I let them just tickle me on the grass. And I laughed and laughed and we would do that. And I noticed that all of a sudden I had more energy. I had something coming back to me. And then I had some wisdom come in about certain things that I hadn't thought about. And I was like, what if my brain and nervous system have a lot more to do with this illness than all of these pills and detox and mitochondria and genetics? And it was like in that space of playing in the grass and being tickled by my kids and looking for four leaf clovers, some other wisdom dropped in that seemed like, oh, that's the blind spot here. And all of a sudden, some things clicked, and I'm like, I think I'm just going to focus on the nervous system for a while. And it made all the difference. And why it took me 10 years to have that epiphany to redirect, I don't know, but it did. And it started from a moment of surrender and sort of giving up, ironically.
That is absolutely incredible. And even in my own recovery journey, the first time I started to see real progress was after 2 years of hell. And then I just finally gave up on trying to recover. I'm like, I don't know what else to try. I just got to try and live a little bit within these limitations. And then a few months passed. I'm like, getting a little bit better. I don't know what's going on. I stopped all the supplements, all the treatments. I didn't even talk about my symptoms anymore. I refused. I was just pretending I didn't have it. No focus there. And I was even criticized when I first started telling my story. People would say, oh, yeah, she went traveling and that fixed her. So clearly she was never sick to start with. But
Mhm.
it's impactful. And I get how it can sound dismissive to someone who hasn't read up on neuroplasticity and the autonomic nervous system and like what four-leaf clovers,
Yeah.
having some fun, but it's a massive thing and it's a reoccurring theme in
Yeah.
virtually every recovery interview that I do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like there needs to be some type of pattern interrupt to the momentum
Yeah.
of our nervous system. And what that interrupt is for one person, it could be travel. For another, it could be laying in the grass. For another, they
Mhm.
maybe just sit inside. I'm just going to watch some movies for several days and laugh.
Yeah.
But it's an interrupt to the habitual biochemistry, the habitual nervous system fight flight response, the thinking of it all, the ruminating, the obsession, the fear. And there's something about that pattern interrupt that brings us into the present moment, which is the only place where wisdom and our true what's truly a fit for us will come in. Like I feel like in the recovery process, there's like we all have our such a unique story and such a unique like thing that came in. Maybe for one person it's brain retraining, for another one it's a diet, for another person it's some type of exercise movement. But there's something about interrupting and like living in alignment in some way that brings a solution that is like energetically right for us. I mean, it kind of sounds woo woo, but there is like this attraction to the perfect next step for you when you're living in alignment. I see that again and again. I can't deny that. And what that is, I feel like can only come when we stop the momentum of the mental fix it game and the stress based seeking that's not an aligned energy. And that shift, it just opens the space for something new to come in that might be so simple. For me, it was doing some simple it wasn't even brain retraining, it was just these exercises for my brain that I used to teach for neck issues. I'm like, I think I need to do that. And all of a sudden I could drive again. But I didn't have that wisdom for 10 years. And it was exercises that I knew. And so I've always been like, wow, what does it take for us to get into alignment to really discern what is the next best step for us? And we have to get out of the stress response to be a match for it, I think.
So when you in all those years up till that moment, did you try many different recovery programs or were you just sort of figuring it out on your
Yeah.
own?
I didn't do recovery programs, but I was a physical therapist and I was trained as a somatic clinician. So I had a whole somatic doctoral level training in somatics. So lots of somatic presencing and mind body work. I was a specialist in chronic pain for years. So I knew all about Sarno and all of that. That was my clinical background. So I had a lot of education of like mind body connection. I tried things ranging from energetics and shamanism and Reiki and conventional medicine and naturopathic medicine and functional medicine. So I didn't do a brain retraining program. I didn't do, I mean, there really wasn't a lot back then. I hadn't even heard of them. But I did have a lot of knowledge, and I didn't apply those mind body techniques to me because I didn't have like chronic pain. I had a lot of other symptoms, but I didn't think that Sarno's concepts applied to me. I was above that because I had a real infection and I had real toxins, and it wasn't just a processing issue in my brain. And I told myself that for years, and the somatic stuff. Well, yeah, that's for people who have this, but I have that. So there was a lot of ego in my training and a lot of that's not what I have, and so I didn't apply those things. It had to come from the humility of giving up to bring those in.
I love that, and I think that's gonna be very validating for a lot of people who are watching and listening, because so many of us are understandably resistant and think that this doesn't apply to us. So even you who was trained in this, did this work professionally, really intellectually understood it, still had that resistance of, "Nope, this
Yeah.
isn't for me. Yeah, this is something different."
Yeah.
I'm I know I told you the other day when we were chatting off camera, but that I recently interviewed my doctor who I originally saw when I first got ME/CFS, and he was very helpful, Dr. Bruce Hoffman. He was wonderful. Didn't have all the answers at the time. Still nobody has all the answers. But when I interviewed him again a few months ago, he said he's sending his clients to see you and to your program. So, like, I'm wondering, from like, how did your personal experience, your professional
Mhm.
experience, how did all of this, influence and shape the creation of the Primal Trust program? Like,
Yeah.
was there something that you saw that was missing
Yeah.
in other spaces that you wanted to include? How did that
Yeah.
start?
Yeah. Good question. So I would say that with my background of being a physical therapist, I have a brain that sort of thinks of a treatment plan. That's how I think of things. And when I
Yeah.
started to recover, I was like, what would the treatment plan be for this? And I would like, well, it wouldn't be this right away because that didn't work. I tried that and that didn't work. And so I started to develop a map based on my personal experience and my clinical training of a type of physical therapy for the nervous system. And so it really started with a protocol that I developed that I started practicing and testing on people. I mean, they were my guinea pigs, and a lot of them were coming from brain retraining programs, and some of them were getting some results and some weren't. And so I just started testing these algorithms out. Took about 1,000 people through a few different algorithms to be like, I'm the clinician piece, but it was based on my journey of a little bit of this, a little bit of somatics, a little bit of functional neurology, true self work, brain retraining. And then eventually I sort of developed a roadmap that worked for the majority. Everybody is an exception. And so just like any physical therapy protocol, you would have a sequence. And so I put that sequence out. Why did I call it Primal Trust? The most important piece in my process of healing was finding an experience of safety inside of me in every moment. And um, I had an experience where somebody was playing sound bowls over my body at one point, and this vibration went through my body that I was like, that feeling, that is what I need. And it was this feeling of absolute utter belonging, safety, groundedness, connection, wholeness. I'm like, what is that? What is that feeling that's coming through me? And the woman playing it's like, oh, the name of this bowl is called Primal Trust. It's the earth's heartbeat, it's the Schumann's resonance. And I'm like, everything I do, the map needs to take them to that place, to the feeling of primal trust, because that is what was broken. And so I just wanted to create a roadmap of helping people to cultivate a feeling that maybe was broken because of trauma or maybe they never had, which is primal trust in their body, in the moment, in life itself. And so, it just became a map, if you will, of how to recreate that frequency inside of you instead of needing like a sound bowl or whatever. Um, and Yeah, and then it just kind of grew from there as far as like the pieces and the ways to implement it and how to, we have lots of things we do now, but there is a general specific sequence, like a physical therapy protocol.
Yeah, that gave me goosebumps, by the way, head to toe when you were explaining that. Oh my goodness, I just got the good kind of shivers. That yeah, that's incredible. And so many. I'm just. How many people would you say have gone through your Primal Trust program? Do you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I mean, we have this current iteration, we've had about 15,000. And then prior to that, I worked with several thousand that were like testing out. So many thousands. And, we're always creating new iterations. We're about to create another new, like simplified way through level one because it's a lot. And like some people just need 3 minutes a day in a nutshell. So I'm about to launch that
Mm.
as well. So it's like constantly like, it can't be a one size fits all. There can be general principles, but I'm learning like, okay, some people literally they have 3 minutes in them a day and whether they're a busy entrepreneur or they've got so much cognitive fatigue, they can't. And some
Sure.
people want the whole meat and potatoes of all the science. That was me. I want the meat and the potatoes of everything,
Yeah.
so it's very in depth. So in that, we've learned a lot. We learned some people like to be in groups, like small little study pods, and they do really well that way. And others are
Mhm.
like, leave me alone. I just want to learn on my own. Thank you very much. And so, trying to find ways to meet everybody where they're at is a bit of a challenge. So yeah, that's a little bit of what we've done.
That's incredible. And one of the reasons I've been so excited to talk to you because the amount of learning I can't even begin to imagine working with so many people because
Mhm.
there are so many nuances to this and everyone is wired a little bit differently or everyone learns differently. And I definitely have the bias of thinking that everyone thinks and learns and behaves like I do. So I put things out there that would work for me. And I have people constantly reminding me, like, not everyone's like you. Like, there's lots of people that are just gonna, like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering because I mean, so many of us now are talking about brain retraining and nervous system regulation. It's become almost household terms, not even just the ME/CFS and long COVID and chronic pain world. I'm starting to hear about it all over the place and like
Mhm.
Mel Robbins and Jay Shetty podcasts. And it's just become more and more commonly talked about. But there's a lot of us that we're really just starting to learn about it. So, do you see, like, what would you say are the biggest misconceptions that people have about brain retraining or nervous
Yeah.
system regulation? What are you
Yeah.
seeing?
Well, kind of like I was saying, there's definitely not a one size fits all. When I started
Yeah.
getting into this, brain retraining was the rage. It was like the doctor's like, go do brain retraining, go do
Yeah.
brain retraining, brain retraining. And yet, and for some people, they really um, gravitated and it worked for them because thinking positively, rehearsing positive things, it was their nature to do that. There were other people that it was disastrous. And I was like, wow, okay, why is that? Who is this for immediately? Who is it not? And then what would happen is sometimes if they go right into a brain retraining program, they would say, that didn't work. It made me worse. And then they would never go try it again years later when maybe it was a great tool, but the wrong time, just like that concept of the physical therapy sequence. And so I realized that for some people, for actually a lot of people, jumping right into brain retraining it's so mental that we're already very mental in some of us are very mental with chronic illness, and it
Mhm.
would reinforce mental obsessive loops, but in more of another dissociative path. And those people would either end up not feeling their body and processing, which is a stage that needs to happen, or trying to create a positive emotion was interpreted as a threat by their limbic system because of their past trauma of being invalidated and unseen. And so we have to be careful when it's like, yeah, brain retraining is great. Yes, it is. And there's a right time for it. Now, I think that there's a type of brain retraining that works for anyone at all times. And I teach this right in my first module. I talk about it publicly. And that is the pattern interrupt, which we were talking about slightly before. The pattern interrupt is something that is a practice that is just about recognizing you have ruminating thoughts and consciously becoming aware of them and redirecting to the present moment, or getting back on task. It's interrupting this unconscious need to figure it out loop, this unconscious fearing the future loop. That kind of brain retraining, which is just a simple let's stop that unconscious habit, I think can be helpful at any stage of the journey. What you do from the pattern interrupt, it might be different from person to person. Maybe they start therapy. Maybe they start nervous vagus nerve work. Maybe they do start somatics. It kind of depends on the person, but that's what I would say about brain retraining. It's great, and the more visualization, positive feeling state thing has a place, and it's a really important place. And I definitely recommend everybody get to that place. And I wouldn't say it's the first step. So, yeah, I'll land on that.
So, what is the first step?
Okay. Well, again, we all have our opinions, and it's not one size fits all. But I think getting an understanding from a scientific standpoint, what
Mm.
is happening to your body through the lens of the nervous system, so that you can widen your diagnosis and identity of what's going on. Because what I see with chronic illness is a very intense identity gets formed. I have chronic fatigue. I have mold. I am mold. I am Lyme. It almost
Mm.
becomes an I am. And when there isn't space for a nervous system piece to that, we end up only looking for solutions based on the pathogen, the toxin, the diagnosis. And we completely ignore solutions that are more holistic, that might be a better fit for our nervous system. That's what I did for 10 years. I just said I ignored the nervous system because I was focused on the diagnosis. So I really like to help people have the science to validate the reason for adding nervous system work, trauma work, parts work, mind body work to their protocol. Because without that conviction, that 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 scientific validation, parts of our protective systems can like just say, no, I don't want to be seen that this is in my head. I don't want you to, make me feel invalidated. And then they'll go years looking for the solution with the pills and the diets and the thing, and they just don't want to look at the nervous system. So what you're doing with your channel, for example, you are educating the masses in a way that helps to validate the science behind nervous system work, so that it's more accepted to that protective psyche. And then there's more of an opening to finding the right next step for that person, because it's not a shameful thing that there might be a mind body connection, a nervous system piece to it. So that's why I do tons of education on the science. You're doing tons of education. These channels that are changing the collective understanding of what chronic illness actually is step one. And it needs to start with the practitioners. And we talked about that because they are the authority. They are the mouthpiece of the
Yeah.
first person that everyone is seeing. And if that practitioner is not bringing in the nervous system lens, they are doing a great disservice to their patient.
Yeah, you and I talked about that before, and I appreciate it so much. And it got me putting together a document for people just to bring to your doctor saying, these are whether we're working with you or me or just watching YouTube channels and learning
Mhm.
stuff, because there is that tendency to be either I work with my doctor or I work outside of it.
Yeah.
And, when we leave the doctor, we wash our hands of them and we still need them. And
Yeah.
there's a lot that they have to offer. But it's challenging because lots of people feel dismissed by their doctor or even, told that there's, even worse, like people get all sorts of messages. And quite often it's well meaning doctors who just, it's heartbreaking for them as well, but they just don't have the tools to
Mhm.
help in these
Yeah.
situations. So, yeah, bridging that gap between everything that's happening here while still working with your doctor is so important. And I know, I talk to people that come to me with medical questions and I say, I can't answer that. They're like, well, I'm doing this hormone replacement therapy and I'm not sure if I should up it or I'm like, I'm not a doctor. I can't, like, this
Yeah.
is why we need to keep that
Mhm.
relationship going and also to help bring the information the other direction. So when patients come in the future, perhaps they're not told, yeah, you just have
Yeah.
to learn to live with it. Yeah. I'm wondering, I mean, I imagine you hear this a lot as well. Something that comes up a lot in people that I talk to and in comments is that people are trying to recover. They have a lot of fear around activity. And sometimes they get these really significant symptom flares. We call them crashes or like really strong
Mhm.
post exertional malaise. So, is there something specific that you do with people or that Primal Trust does with people to help them to avoid these or recover from them?
Yeah.
What is your approach to that?
Yeah. And my answer might be a little controversial. I have found, I believe that there's a connection with like our mitochondrial energy source, the way that we utilize energy, and this inner sense that I am on a path that is safe for me and that is in alignment for me. And if we have lived a life of saying yes when we mean no, taking the right turn when we should have taken the left, doing what our parents wanted us to do, when we've used our energy in a way that resulted in emotional suppression of some sort, I think a disconnect happens between our mind and body. And I think sometimes our autonomic nervous system gets into a protection response anytime we use our energy. At a certain point, we have a crash, and then it's like, you just got up and started doing stuff again. And I don't like, it's almost like a part of our psyche is saying, I don't trust how you're going to use your life force energy because in the past you threw yourself under the bus, or you started people pleasing, or you started saying yes when you meant no. And that, that threat response of activity means something negative emotionally, the autonomic nervous system, in its brilliance, says, well, we're just going to keep you from doing activity and you are safer off in bed. Now, I know this is a very like psychological answer. I've just worked with so many people who have found that when they can establish a trust inside of themselves of this activity, I am staying in alignment. And they show like, I don't say yes when I mean no. I don't make that meeting 40 minutes when I only have 10. I don't just get up and run all the errands I haven't run in a month and blow myself out. I run what is reasonable within a day. When the self trust gets established between your actions and the way you're utilizing your energy, I see something shift. I've seen it over and over. It's almost like a signal happens deep inside of us. And I don't know if it's an energetic thing, a meridian thing, a mitochondria thing. I do feel like there is, I could get into some theories I have about our voltage change in our heart and how it signals the mitochondria. But there's some message to our life force producing aspect of self, our mitochondria, our energy utilization that says, my energy is being produced and utilized in a way that's aligned and that I feel good and I don't have to suppress my emotions. So, in order to get there, what does that mean? It means somebody's going to have to get in the habit of emotional processing, whether that's journaling, like I love journal speak, or somatic experiencing, or just even doing an activity and then sitting and being very conscious about how did I just use my energy that was in alignment? Did I stay in integrity that whole time? And then, like, yes, I did. That was safe and it's good. And you're like almost rehearsing the energy you just spent is aligned. It starts to build this coherent communication between the autonomic nervous system, our cell danger response, our mitochondrial function, that over time we build momentum and being able to do more and more and more. There's a lot of research that the cell danger response, the mitochondria, which ends up in like this shutdown response, and that's responsible for a lot of the chronic fatigue that you're talking about, and even just how we're utilizing like lactic acid post energy and all the things, that it's an actual danger response, that signaling is activated by a voltage change in the cells. And when I think about voltage change, we know also from the HeartMath Institute that our heart center, our heart is the biggest area of voltage change in the body, and like how our heart is operating in that moment through HRV tests, you can see that. I feel that when someone is improving their HRV, which is like heart-centered aligned living, that voltage change signals a safety. This is a good reason to use energy. My HRV is there showing that. My sense of emotional alignment shows that. And I see that being a part of the of what really shifts the needle and having that post-exercise malaise that you're discussing. So again, a lot of theory, and a lot of people might be like, "That sounds like about a bunch of hogwash," but it's just based on clinical observation and my own personal experience.
And And it aligns with a lot of what I hear from people, experts and laymen alike about recovery, and definitely getting in alignment and being aware and feeling your emotions and all of these different things and making those good choices, those right choices for yourself. But are there times, I'm sure there are, and I believe you talk about this, where people have stress that they don't know about it, or like how do we address what we don't know is there?
Yeah. That is true. I mean, we have stuff in our DNA from trauma from our ancestry, yet alone like unconscious stuff. We can't possibly know about all of it, but what we can do is there might be an underlying stress pattern. And the way that we start to learn about that is simply awareness practices. One of them is journaling, journal speak, which I love for becoming aware of unconscious stress. I know you've spoken about that with different people. Even just a practice of just somatic presencing. And then you might start to be like a lot of people are like, I don't have stress, I don't have stress. But what happens for a lot of people is through the theory of general adaptation syndrome, our receptors of our cells become so used to uptaking adrenaline and cortisol and all the stress hormones that we don't actually feel those stress hormones in our bloodstream because we have excessive receptors for stress. So you will feel normally calm with a very heightened stress response until you start sitting and having a practice every day of sitting and feeling, intentionally saying, I'm checking in with myself. What's here that I might not be aware of? And you start to
Mhm.
let this unconscious part of you know that it's safe to feel. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people will be like, whoa, I feel this like knot in my stomach and this like deep existential worry and like the feeling that maybe I'm not okay or I'm not worthy. Like I never knew that was there. And that is this existential underlying stress that can really wreak havoc inside of our body and our nervous system and cause, the things that we're describing. So habitual awareness practices where you are looking for what is there. I
Mhm.
want to write and just see everything I feel. I want to sit and feel. I want to know what is there. Over time, you will build the trust with your psyche and it will bubble up. And then you might have some emotional processing to do. But that is how I see us work through some of those unconscious stress patterns.
Yeah, I'm smiling as you're speaking because I'm thinking, because every interview I do, it helps me understand my own journey a little bit better in this whole process. And I was thinking that knot in my stomach and that deep existential dread, that was my 20s, with zero space dedicated to just checking in with myself. Like, just
Yeah.
get busier, do more. Maybe I need medication, a little voice in the back of my head. Maybe there's something wrong with me because of this anxiety and fear. And then boom, 30, ME/CFS hits.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And we've mentioned Journal Speak a couple times, and for people who aren't aware of it, I do have a video coming out soon walking you through it. So subscribe if you don't want to miss it. But it comes from Nicole Sachs, as I'm sure I don't have to
Mhm.
tell you, and she really does break down how to do it. But if I would share just one piece of it right now for people who want to get started, it's about really getting at those things that you don't want to admit are there. And a really great tool that she has for this, and there's a lot more that she helps you through with it, but just a basic starting place is journaling someplace that you're going to destroy, like a piece of paper that you're going to set on fire, or an email addressed to no one that you're going to delete when it's done. And there's something magical that happens when you start doing this because you want to write and be honest. So when we're talking about how do you know about stresses that aren't there? Some of them you're just too scared to look at or too
Yeah.
scared to admit or say out loud. And sometimes when you put them on paper or you write them in that email that you're going to destroy, you realize, oh my goodness, I've been carrying this around, but I don't even think it's true. Like her example was, or one of them was like, I hate being a mother. And she put that down and it was, oh my goodness. But it gives you a chance to look at these things and realize that thoughts aren't facts, but some of these thoughts we carry around inside of us, they're just giving space
Mhm.
to all the things that we don't think, the things think we're too ugly to see the light of day. Just let them out. And then, like, wait, are these even true?
Yeah.
And even if they are, that's okay. Just let them have some air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Acknowledging these inner realities is so important. I actually have my daughter who's just turned 15. Like this, that's a great practice, what you just said for children that
Mm.
are maybe teens where you're not able to like communicate and they don't feel safe talking to you. I'll say, you know what, LA, just take 3 minutes, put it on this piece of paper, rip it up, throw it away. I'll never look at it. And it helps them start to process in a way that maybe they don't. And then over time I've noticed she's actually starting to tell me more about how she feels. And I think it was through the habit of like, it's first of all safe on this piece of paper mom never sees. So just a little
Yeah.
tidbit for those with teens. It's helpful too.
Oh, I love that so much. That would have been so helpful as a teenager. It's so hard being a teenager. To any teens watching, man,
Yeah.
if it feels challenging, it's because it is. It's not an easy time of life. Yeah. Good advice. Something else I imagine you come across as well as I hear constantly is people saying, I've done like six programs. I've read all the books. I get it. I think I understand neuroplasticity and the nervous system. I'm doing all the tools and I've made a lot of progress. And now I'm just like stuck. I've got to this place of, we try and guess and put numbers on it of 75% or 80%. And I can't seem to get past there. And, I have my own theories on this and different people explain it different ways, but I'd love to hear your experience of, do you see that? And if so, what do you think is happening there?
Yeah. I call it, the 70, 80% of the hidden emotional world that we haven't met. Especially a lot of people who are like what you said, they've done six programs. That means they're probably very mental people and they
Yeah.
like learning and they like, doing all the fix it things. People who have a bias for mentalism have often a deficiency in feeling and processing
Mm,
and meeting fully. And so you might be learning and doing and you might not be fully feeling. And I really think that there is certain like almost like deep energetic blocks, deep emotional things that are preventing the full flow, like through our meridian system, through our endocrine system, all the things that need to fully flow for the switch to turn on to get fully out of cell danger response, to have the mitochondria fully turn on, the detox and the absorption and all the things, the hormone rebalancing. There is a need for this like full body synchronization. And I think that we cannot get there if we are not fully feeling beings, and that might mean a period of less learning, less programs, less coaching, even,
mm,
and more just feeling and living, just living and feeling and noticing what comes up that maybe you've been avoiding. So that might be one piece is like the lack of fully feeling. And there's often another piece, which is usually relational of some type of lack of alignment that needs to be met, and the elephant in the room that needs to be seen, like I've never forgiven my husband, or I blocked my parents but I
mhm,
actually want to somehow have a dynamic, or I'm need to leave this or whatever. So something, the thing that we're like,
mm.
I'll do everything but that thing and we'll see how, and the thing is right there. So there might be a thing to look at and decide,
Yeah.
and there might be something to feel. That's what I often see, and there might be other little pieces sometimes. I'm not against like functional medicine optimizing, things, hormones and things, digestive things if needed to help people get that last little bit as well. Sometimes there's just some cleanup in the body to do and detox and things like that too. So I'm not a purist by any means that it's always perfectly nervous system and
Yeah.
emotion, but that'd be what I say.
Yeah. A thing to look at and something to feel. I love that. I think that sums it up
Yeah.
perfectly. So I know you've shared a few things throughout this, but if there was something, could you walk us through a practical example of an exercise or technique that you use in Primal Trust that someone could consider applying today?
Yeah. Well, let me just share with you. Remember, I said how I realized I had some exercises that I used to teach as a physical therapist that I wasn't using to when I went through that surrender thing at the beginning. What I realized, one of the things that we used to do as a physical therapist was we did functional neurology practices, which are eye exercises that help to improve brain processing, especially like midbrain, and they actually over time help to decrease limbic system like overreaction and send safety signals. One of the things that happens with chronic conditions, especially neurological, is our brain processing kind of goes offline. We get this neuroinflammation, and the brain just is like, eh, 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 eh. One of the most direct ways to the brain is through our eyes. Our eyes are like a muscle for the brain. And the other thing that these eye exercises are really important for is that they connect right to the back of the neck, and they literally influence the alignment of C1, C2, and upper cervical issues are actually one of the hidden, I believe, one of the hidden things behind a lot of chronic conditions is having a good upper cervical alignment and good structural integrity there and good biomechanics. So this particular exercise hits the brain, hits the midbrain, and also helps to align the upper cervical. So I'm going to show it to you in a second. But that being said, if you have severe upper cervical laxity, or which I actually do, I have chronic CCI, cranial cervical instability. You want to be careful and you want to do a very small range of motion, but this can also be very helpful. If you do this exercise and you feel dizzy, it's actually normal. It just means that your brain processing is kind of like going haywire, but it also means you need it. So the one I'm going to show you is something called the vestibular ocular motor reflex, or VOR retraining. It's simplified called eye gaze stabilization, and it's one of the first practices that people in Primal Trust learn to begin improving brain processing. And so, all you do, very simple, you're going to put your thumb in front of your nose, arm's length away, right in front of your nose, like that. Yep. And then, what I want you to do is, I want you to keep your eyes focused on your thumbnail, keep your chin level, and you're going to slowly nod your head no, very slowly, watching your thumbnail the whole time, right in front of your nose, back and forth. And you want to keep it very slow. You don't want like jerky motions, and that it's like a smooth pursuit. Eye gaze stable while the head is turning. And I know this seems really silly, like, what in the heck is this doing? Some of you doing this who's watching the recording might find that you feel a little woozy, it might feel a little dizzy. And that means that this is an important one for you to do, but slowly. And you're going to go back and forth about 10 times, small range of motion. If you have instability in your upper cervical, your range of motion is literally just a couple inches side to side. And maybe you just do three. And you will know because you'll feel like, oh, that was like a lot. Some of you will do this and you'll feel nothing. Those people, I would say, do 3 sets of 10 a few times a day. Over a few days, you might notice that like your ability to handle stimulation in the room is better. Your ability to drive and have like multiple things happening is better. Handling light, sound, things like that, focus is better. Because what it's doing is your limbic system, when it's hyperactive, your eyes actually dart all over the place because that's the stress response. We're looking for the predator. When we slow down our eye movement in a smooth pursuit, we are forcing a signal to the limbic system of safety, and there's no predator in the room because I am doing this slowly. This is very different from scrolling where our eyes all over the place and
Mhm.
the phone. It's a very different than the dopamine driven eye movements. We're slowing it down. That being said, when we start to slow things down, the brain can be like, not safe. We need to like move things quicker. So sometimes you can have a little activation. Over time, though, doing the simple eye movement, string it together day by day, you're sending signals to the brain of safety. You're literally getting coordination of your left and right hemisphere and your vestibular ocular motor reflex through here, which is a lot of midbrain processing help. And you're stabilizing your upper cervical by getting a uniform activation. And so over time, it can help with instability. So it's like it was a lot, right? It was a lot with a really simple practice, but it's one of my
Yes.
favorites, and that's the one that I started to do when I couldn't do anything, and I was, like, basically living in a dark, quiet room or laying in the grass, and I was able to start driving again after doing that for just, a little while. So, it's a good exercise.
That's amazing. Thank you for walking us through that. And I'm going to start doing it. I love
Yeah.
how these simple, I think of them as, nervous system life hacks. Just,
Mhm.
we still have to do all the bigger work, but these
Yeah.
little things can really deliver a lot as well, especially in the
Yeah.
moment. So, for people who are listening and watching, and this is all resonating for them, and they're thinking, maybe Primal Trust is for me. It sounds like there are different options to get involved, or what does it look
Yeah.
like for someone to go through Primal Trust?
Yeah.
What do you have available?
Well, I would first of all just recommend like reading my free book, and you maybe will have a link. I think you have a link um, through your link. It's called How Healing Happens, and it's about 130 pages, and it's can't quite tell, but it's got a lot of graphics and all sorts of things in there. This book is the science in a nutshell. You asked what the first step was. This is to help you understand the why behind everything I teach. And also, I have multiple practices in here that are free. So, like, instead of just jumping in, like, make sure
Mhm.
it's a fit in how I teach and all that. I have vagus nerve exercises, brain retraining, somatic exercises in here. And then I also go through what the community is and how it works and all of that. So it's kind of an all in one thing that I just made um, for free because it's so important for people to understand. So, how healing happens, it's under the free resources of my website, which is primaltrust.org. Or maybe there'll be a direct link here through your affiliate below for that book. Um, and then when you start, you start with a level one program, which is called Regulate. And that's where you're learning all these tools that I just shared with you and the reason and the why and interrupting the habitual cycle of the fix it aholic. And I don't know what to do. You start to learn how to send messages of safety to your nervous system. We start there and then we build upon the program from there.
That is absolutely incredible. And yes, for sure, everything will be linked in the video description. So, people, please do yourselves a favor, take a moment, check this out. Dr. King has been doing this work for a long time. She's clearly worked with thousands and thousands of people. She has the personal experience, the clinical experience, the hands on experience. It's just so, so wonderful. It's still hard for me to accept and realize that this is real, that we have so much help for all the people out there that are going through this. Because for so long, it wasn't like this, as I don't have to tell you, but it's changing fast. And so many people bring your program up to me. I hear about it all over. All of the time, so I can say that from the real world, people are who are going through it are finding it very helpful. I'm going to link your first interview up here as well because it was excellent. It dives a bit more into your own journey, which is incredible, and then also more insights about how to navigate recovery for people to check out. Thank you so much, Dr. King. This has been incredible. Absolutely incredible. I so appreciate you being here. Every sentence was gold.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to shout out to you because you are making waves in this industry with these videos, with your podcast. I've watched a few of them. They're great. I'm always like, yes, excellent. Yes, yes, yes. So I highly recommend any of my listeners who will be listening to this check out and subscribe because she's got so many incredible experts and yeah, just your dedication. And I know the work that you put into this the last couple of years of getting this going. I know what it takes to do that, and it means that this is a true heart-led mission for you to change the way that healing happens in the chronic illness community. So just, hats off to you and thank you for all you do.
I appreciate that. And one of my biggest focuses right now is just bringing us all together more because there's so
Mhm.
many of us out, and I know you and I have talked about this, just sort of working in silos, and it can be confusing for people when there's all these different programs. And I think if we could just come together, have these discussions together, work together more closely, and then just so people can see and choose what's the right fit for
Yeah.
them. So yeah,
Yeah.
incredible. All right, thank you again. Thank you to those of you watching and listening, and I hope to see you in this first interview with Dr. Kathleen King.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.